Welcome back to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. We'll be right back with today's guest, but first, let's hear from our podcast sponsors. We want to say thanks to Hometown Ticketing, the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. You can find out more about what Hometown Ticketing can do for you and your school by going to hometownticketing.com and talk to their experts. Hometown Ticketing, simple and easy online ticketing. We also want to say thanks to Huddle. Remember, at Huddle, we power sports. Over 200,000 teams use Huddle to help their teams play better using video and analytics. Huddle's the complete performance platform. They've got online tools. They have smart cameras. They've always had analytics, but there's so much more. Huddle's also built for every level of play, from club and youth teams all the way through high school and college programs, and even the pros use Huddle to help their athletes perform at the highest level. You're in pretty good company with over 6 million users, including your student athletes and the coaches of the college teams you're trying to get to recruit them. If you want to find out more about what Huddle can do for you and your program and how your school can become a Huddle school, go to huddle.com and talk to their professionals. Remember, at Huddle, we power sports. We also want to say thanks to Final Forms, the industry leader in registration. But Final Forms is more than just forms. Final Forms is a team, it's technology, and they provide schools with compliance, communication, and risk management solutions. Final Forms can help your stakeholders with things like mobile accessibility, and it has reminders for parents about policies and physicals and all the forms that go with having an athlete in the house. Final Forms can also help with team communication and attendance and even certification management for coaches. And for athletic directors, Final Forms can help with eligibility, with rosters, and all the reports that come across your desk. And it does this with secure language translation and ADA compliance. You know, it's time for you to talk to a team that's walked in your shoes. To take the next steps and find out what Final Forms can do for you, go to finalforms.com/Jake. That's finalforms.com/Jake to get started with the Final Forms team. We also want to say thanks to Gipper. Gipper is the way that athletic directors, coaches, and schools create world-class marketing content. With Gipper, you can create custom branded content for your school's social media channels in seconds on any device and without needing any design experience. It's so easy, even I can do it. Go to Gipper.com, tell them you heard about it on the Educational AD podcast, and find out how you can start creating world-class content. That's Gipper.com. We also want to say thanks to Athletic Surveys by Lifetrack. Athletic Surveys by Lifetrack allow you to collect comprehensive data that helps you evaluate and improve your entire athletic program. Athletic Surveys by Lifetrack also connects you with the 95% of the parents and the student athletes who really love your program. And it gives them a voice to help demonstrate the importance that a positive athletic experience has for them. Go to athleticsurveys.com and check out their testimonials, and then give them a call at 1-800-738-6466, or you can email them at info@athleticsurveys.com to get started. If you've never used a survey to take the pulse of your parents or your student athletes, you're really missing out. Talk to the folks at Athletic Surveys by Lifetrack and let them help you take your athletic program from good to great. We also want to say thanks to Sideline Interactive for their support. Sideline Interactive's indoor scoring tables and video boards not only raise money for your department, but also create the ultimate game day experience for your athletes. Go to sidelineinteractive.com or to schedule a live web demo and see their tables and boards in action. You can also call them at 832-786-0302 or email them at sales@sidelineinteractive.com. That's sales@sidelineinteractive.com and see exactly what their fantastic products can do for you. And we want to say thanks to Wall of Fame by Vital Signs. You know, they have a mission to bring your school's legacy to life. They've got a variety of interactive touchscreen consoles and an entire library of templates to help recognize the athletic achievements of your students, both past and present. Let them help you showcase your school's diverse history and your proudest moments, and go to vitalsignswalloffame.com, or you can call them at 614-981-3589 or send them an email at sales@vitalsignswalloffame.com. Remember, they're on a mission to bring your school's legacy to life. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. Our guest today is someone we like to call a friend of the show, Matt Welsh. Matt is a registered athletic administrator, and he's the athletic director at Madison-Plains Local School District in London, Ohio. Matt and I connected a little over a year ago, just as he was starting the position as a brand new AD at Madison-Plains. So we're kind of excited to hear what his first year's been like. Matt, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Jake. It's great to be on. Thanks for having me.
Well, I know you've been visiting those other podcasts, so we're glad you have some time for us. Just kidding. As you know, we always like to let our listeners have a chance to get to know our guests. So give us that 5-minute bio, where you were born, where you grew up, and kind of that athletic path that's brought you to Madison-Plains.
Sure. So I grew up in Northeast Ohio near Akron. My stepfather was a basketball coach, won a couple of state championships. My biological father played baseball his entire life. So I've been around athletics for as long as I can remember. Participated in basketball, and then we ran cross country to get in shape for basketball, and we either played baseball or ran track to stay in shape for basketball. Obviously, the coach's influence was on me there. But I graduated from a high school called Stowe Monroe Falls High School in Northeast Ohio. I then went on to get my undergraduate from Kent State University, and that was in physical education and health with a focus in athletic training. And I actually did not go into that field at all. I ended up in the wireless business, working in sales, selling car kits and bag phones and car phones down in Columbus, Ohio. So I was at the wireless carrier for about 20 years. While I was there, I got my MBA from Ohio Dominican University. Still stayed connected with sports. I coached a couple of youth programs. I coached our 8th grade girls team from my church. But never in a million years thought I'd get into athletic administration. But eventually I did. Along the way, I worked with some boosters organizations, but still live down here in Central Ohio. I'm married for 22 years, 2 beautiful daughters. I've got a senior at Ohio University, and I've got a sophomore at Clemson. So as Buckeye fans, we did let my youngest go to Clemson, but she rocks her Ohio State uniform every once in a while down there. But yeah, that's my background and kind of what shaped me before I started looking at this particular job path.
Again, our regular listeners know I say this every time, but I just love listening to the stories and the different paths that we take. Was there a single tipping point that you can identify that, nudged you into the world of athletic administration, or was it just, that was all the steps leading up to that point?
There actually was. So I think it's vitally important to love what it is that you do every day. And for a very long period of time, I couldn't wait to jump out of bed and head into the office. Eventually that fire started to get smaller and smaller, and it eventually went out. And then based off of a organizational restructure, I found myself kind of really questioning whether I moved to Chicago or I moved to New Jersey just to keep my job. And what I ended up doing was actually just taking a sabbatical. I took some time off with the permission of my better half. I hired a professional coach and spent a lot of time really trying to find myself and find that fire again. Took a lot of the, what should you be doing tests and courses with my professional coach. And I took the first one and it came back, you need to be a principal, you need to be a teacher, you need to be a coach, you basically need to be working with kids. And I was like, no way. I saw that with my parents. My mom was a teacher, my stepmom was a teacher. So I'm like, there's no way. So I talked to my professional coach a little bit more. I took another test, same results. So, I knew that I didn't want to be a teacher. I actually had my PE and health teaching certificate when I got out of college. I didn't want to go down that road. So I met with some principals to see whether or not administration would be a good fit for me. But then I spent some time with our local athletic director, Ryan Walker, here in Marysville. And I knew Ryan because I was on the booster side of things. But I went in and we had a completely different talk track. We really started talking about his profession, and he challenged me to go out and talk to some more people. And the more people that I talked to in this profession, the more excited that I got to get into it. So I jumped in with both feet. I treated myself like an 18-year-old, and I started looking at colleges that had this particular curriculum. And I went back and I got a second master's degree, this time from Ohio University, and master's in athletic administration. And that was arguably the most fun 2 years of my life. I made some of my best friends. My cohort had someone from Maine and someone from Washington. So, and everywhere in between. But yeah, I graduated in 2020. Something else happened in 2020, a little known pandemic, which put a little damper on being able to find a seat. But really, that's how I ended up in athletic administration.
Well, great story. And again, Ohio University, we've had the directors of that program on as podcast guests. So,
so that was both Kelly and Aaron, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. So shout out to them. For our listeners, our guest today is Matt Welsh. He's a registered athletic administrator, and he's the athletic director at Madison-Plains Local in London, Ohio. We're going to take a quick break, but we'll be back with some more. Please stay with us. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to thank Gipper for their support of the Educational AD Podcast. Gipper is the way that athletic directors and schools and coaches can create world-class marketing content. Go to Gipper.com and find out how to create custom branded content for your school's social media channels in seconds on any device and without needing any design experience. It's so simple. Even I can do it. Go to Gipper.com, tell them you heard about it on the Educational AD Podcast, and start creating world-class marketing content. That's Gipper.com. Welcome back, everyone, to the Educational AD Podcast. Our guest today is Matt Welsh, registered athletic administrator from Ohio. Matt, as I said in our opening, you and I met about a year ago, online, of course. That's how people do it these days. And you had pretty much just taken the job at Madison-Plains, and you were a brand new athletic director, first job. So here we are a year later. Walk us through that year in review, the highs, the lows, any interesting anecdotes. Share with our listeners how the first year was.
Yeah, so it really was incredible. So I was approved by the board in mid-June of 2021. And I think I started going to the office like the next day. There were so many things that I wanted to implement, and there were so many things that I needed to understand. But one of the focuses that I had based off of my marketing background was I actually wanted to better market our athletic program and our kids. One of your sponsors is Gipper. Matthew Glick and that company is incredible. I've partnered with Gipper to really build out our social media platform. I had a couple of platforms in place. I added Instagram, and we really started to highlight the different things that we had going on at Madison-Plains, and was just so excited to do it. And then from there, I really started sitting down with our coaches and just trying to understand, why do you coach here? What's the history been like? What's our vision for the future? But ultimately, I was looking for the answer of what it meant to be a Golden Eagle. So, I've got a great coaching staff that was very supportive and very excited to have me in place. And then once we kind of had the foundational things in place, it was then time to start hitting some off-season workouts and going to some shootouts and starting to meet the kids and meeting the parents. The success at Madison-Plains was kind of on the lower end. Some of our teams struggled a little bit. We are an extremely small school. Our football program at the high school level has less than 30 kids participating in it. So very, very small. But the commitment level that these kids have, and also that these coaches have, I'd put it up against some of the bigger programs in the state. But we went through the fall season, and, we fell on our face a couple of times. I think we missed a bus. I think I personally had to officiate a soccer game with a parent, but all things that we could learn from it, those things that the ADs listening either have done it and know what I'm talking about, or they lose sleep over the opportunity of it happening to them. But got through fall, got through winter. We started to see a peak of COVID again. We had to work through some of those situations. And then we shifted to spring, which what I thought was going to be the easiest season, because I only had softball, baseball, and track grades 7 through 12 going on. And I think I rescheduled 42 games or events. Our school district, unfortunately, we can't host track events. So I know you're a big track guy. Well, we don't have a track that is competition ready. So we're constantly on the road. So the spring proved to be a long season. But I'm so proud of the relationships that we made with the kids, most importantly, the parents, the community, my coaching staff, and my administrators. So it was very, very exciting. I learned to do things that were not taught at Ohio University. I got pretty good at lining fields and mowing fields. But the appreciation that was felt by my community was very strong, and I really made some friendships that will last a lifetime.
Talking about your spring sports, the last several years of my career in Florida, spring in Florida, you have baseball and softball, so 2 different fields, 2 different facilities. You've got track, boys and girls for the schools that have track. You've got tennis. Tennis is a spring sport, so that's boys and girls.
Boys and girls.
And then you also have lacrosse for boys and girls. So talking about spring schedules, spring transportation, spring everything. One administrator, and I stole this term, it's like juggling flaming chainsaws. Okay. I got a question for you. Looking back, your first year, and I know we never want to do this. We never want to say, I got it. I'm done, because we're not. But was there a moment where you did kind of tell yourself, hey, I got this. I can do this. I'm really an AD. Does one moment stick out for you?
There actually does, and you actually summed it up very well. Um, Due to the fact that we lost early in some of our seasons coming out of winter, I actually had a pretty large break in between winter and spring. It was like 3 weeks without any competitions. And I had some things to do, but I had kind of set myself up for success. And there was about a week where I just kind of sat back and I'm like, you know what, I got this. Yeah, no problems here. Um, I can kind of take a breather right now. My head's finally above water. And then it kicked in and I'm like, all right, let's confirm on some officials. Let's confirm on some transportation. It was then that I learned that we had a bunch of bus drivers quit, that we had some officials decide to get out of officiating for baseball and softball. So a lot went on, and then it was a big scramble, and then it started raining. And no pun intended, but when it rains, it pours. So it got me straight aligned very quickly.
Yeah, it's funny how that can happen so quickly. Okay. For our listeners, our guest today is Matt Welsh. He's the athletic director at Madison-Plains Local in London, Ohio. We're going to take another break, but we'll be back. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We also want to thank Final Forms for their support. Final Forms is the industry leader in registration, but Final Forms is more than just forms. Final Forms is a team, it's technology, and they provide schools with compliance, communication, and risk management solutions. Final Forms also helps your stakeholders with things like mobile accessibility, has reminders for parents about policies, about physicals, and all the forms that come with athletics. Final Forms also can help with team communication and attendance, and even certification management for coaches. And for athletic directors, Final Forms can help with eligibility, with rosters, and all the reports that come across your desk. And it does this with secure language translation and ADA compliance. You know, it's time for you to talk to a team that's walked in your shoes. To take the next steps and find out what Final Forms can do for you and your program, go to finalforms.com/Jake. That's finalforms.com/Jake to get started on the Final Forms team. Welcome back, everyone, to the Educational AD Podcast. Our guest today is Matt Welsh, and he was just talking about how he uses Final Forms.
Yeah, I do. I had the opportunity to look at all the logos behind you. Final Forms has been an incredible partner of mine this year. Being in a small school, I don't have a lot of resources, so I really need to count on those things that make my job easier. Like you said, with Gipper, you can create world-class graphics in just seconds. With Final Forms, I'm able to manage my inventory. I'm able to manage my equipment. I can manage my rosters. I manage my certifications and requirements for my coaches. Just a fantastic tool as we don't have enough time in the day as it is. And we look for tools like these to make our lives a little bit easier and allow us to work more efficiently. So nice job picking them up as a partner, and thanks to them for supporting the podcast.
Oh, well, thank you, Matt. And I know our good friends, Clint and Julie at Final Forms, appreciate that as well. I'll send this on to them. Our next segment, we always ask our guests about the mentors that they've had in their life. I say this all the time. None of us get to where we're at on our own. There's somebody either patting us on the back or kicking us in the butt. So who are some of the people that have helped you along the way as mentors?
Yeah, so in regards to athletic administration, I've really had a lot of key people that I've worked with, and some have been face-to-face and others have been virtually. But I've mentioned Ryan Walker in Marysville. He was the AD here when I was on the booster board. So I had created a relationship with him as a board member of our boosters. But then he was the first person that I talked to in regards to what it meant to be an AD. He transitioned out of the role and Joey Day took the role. Joey and I almost talk daily. He He's a young AD, but he's just so well thought out, and I really feel like we're cut from a similar cloth. And he's somebody, there's a mutual respect that if we need to kick each other in the pants, we've got that built. Joe Blind over at Dublin Jerome is somebody who let me come and spend a year with him the year before the year that we just finished up. So what would that be, in 2020, 21? I had been working with Joey and Ryan in Marysville, learning their side of things. And I just wanted a different aspect. There wasn't the opportunity to go work as an AD myself. So Joe embraced me over at Dublin to let me come in there. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Molly Fiesler, who was at Pick North, and now she's at Thomas Worthington. From a state association perspective and a district board perspective, there are few people that are respected and appreciated as much as Molly. And she's a great one to learn from. We mentioned Kelly Walton and Aaron Wright down at Ohio University. While I was there for those 2 years, both of those individuals held the seat of program director, and learned so much from them and still interact with them to this day. Jerry Snodgrass, the former OHSAA executive director, is somebody that I can reach out to, and his experience and just the way that he looks at the kids' experience in educational based athletics is just really exciting. Doug Ute, the new OHSAA executive director, is somebody who you would never realize that he's been in the seats that he's in, because he's just so down to earth. And we recently had a situation where we really needed to talk compliance and OHSAA and what we were doing with a particular student athlete. And the amount of time that Doug gave me to understand what it was that we were going through, and ultimately the decision that was being made was second to none. Our local superintendent, Diane Allen, has been incredibly supportive of me. We met actually on the soccer field. She had a daughter who was playing when my daughter was playing. And to be honest, I didn't even realize she was our superintendent when I first met her, and offered her a bottle of water and some shade under a tent. And that blossomed into a really neat friendship. Glenn Gillespie, OIAAA, I'm sure you know Glenn, has been very helpful. And then most recently, Scott Jarvis out of Iowa. We have really connected, and he's shared a lot of information with me, and he's got a unique spin to what it is that he does. So in the athletic administration, those people all played key roles. From a boss perspective, people that I reported to, my current building principal, Kyle Huffman, has been everything that I could ask for and more. He's been a principal for nearly 20 years. He's seen it all. There was actually a time at a previous school where his AD was removed from position, and he needed to play that role in addition to being principal. So he knows what it is that we do every day and how much time that takes. And then I worked with a couple of individuals in the wireless world, Bobby Morrison and Scott Kane, who were both incredible to me. And then lastly, I consider them mentors, but my wife and my kids mean the world to me, and they inspire and motivate me to be the best that I can be. I truly love interacting with my wife. She's a business professional, but she looks at things so much differently than I do. We're wired differently. It's probably why we're married. But there's so many times where I can just bounce something off of her, and she can either play the role of what that's going to feel like to a parent or even to a kid. So that's neat. And then obviously my parents played a key role.
Well, I just love to, again, follow the path, and kind of a who's who of athletic directors there. And I love it when somebody mentions their current boss as a mentor. It means they've got a good working relationship. And of course, you gave the shout out to the family members. Very cool stuff.
You got to do that, right?
Absolutely. Okay. You don't know who's listening. For our listeners, our guest today is Matt Welsh, registered athletic administrator. He's the athletic director at Madison-Plains Local in London, Ohio. Going to take another break, but we'll be back. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We also want to say thanks to Huddle. Remember, at Huddle, we power sports. Over 200,000 teams use Huddle to help their teams play better using video and analytics. Huddle's the complete performance platform. They've got online tools. They have smart cameras. They've always had analytics, but there's so much more. Huddle's also built for every level of play, from club and youth teams all the way through high schools and colleges, and even the pros use Huddle to help their athletes perform at the highest level. You're in pretty good company with over 6 million users, including your student athletes and the coaches, the college teams you're trying to get to recruit them. If you want to find out more about what Huddle can do for you and your program and how your school can become a Huddle school, go to huddle.com and talk to their professionals. Remember, at Huddle, we power sports. Welcome back to the Educational AD Podcast. Matt, our next talking point, we always ask our guests to share where they're at in their journey with their state association, as well as with the NIAAA. We have, new ADs, younger ADs, even old timers like me. We're all at a different point. So where are you at right now with your NIAAA journey?
Sure. So as you mentioned earlier, I'm a registered athletic administrator. That was actually one of the outcomes of going through the master's program at OU. That's actually where I was introduced to the National Association. So some of that curriculum aligned with what we needed to get in place from a course perspective to become registered athletic administrators. I'm currently working towards my CAA. The only thing that I'm missing is that second year of actually working in the AD office. But right now I am active within the Central District of the Ohio Interscholastic Athletic Administration Association. I sit on that board with our led by Josh Duvall out of Granville. And then I also work with Glenn with the OIAAA. So I am a certified facilitator for some LTI courses. We actually had our summer institute this week. I was supposed to facilitate 2 courses yesterday, but unfortunately we didn't have enough people sign up. So I was given the day off. But truly one of my memories in my short career, in the winter, I got to facilitate a leadership course with Doug Kilgore. And it was just a dream come true. It was in person and just working the room with Doug. And then somehow having some of the most senior ADs in our state sitting out there listening to Doug and I. That was a very neat experience. So I'm going to keep those things going. Now I want to figure out how I can get more involved with the NIAAA. So I have only been to our virtual national conference. Looking forward to going to Nashville this year. But yeah, I think it's fantastic. I'm constantly reaching out to Glenn to see how else I can help. But I just feel that it's so important to support the profession because our profession is unique. So rarely do you have teams that are companies that are competing against each other who want to help each other. So, and that's what we have with our schools. So it's just so neat to sit down and network with these people. There's so much to learn. And quite honestly, there's so much to steal because there's so much great stuff that's being done out there.
No, you're absolutely right. The AD world, it's not like the coaching world where people tend to, coaches keep things close to the vest. Athletic directors can't wait to share
That's
or
right.
give, or as you said, steal a great idea. And, you've already you're doing what we always recommend to all ADs, particularly newer ones. It's just get involved. Okay, volunteer to be on a committee. Help out with teaching courses. It's all great stuff. Okay, appreciate you sharing that. Once again, for listeners, Matt Welsh is our guest today. He's the athletic director at Madison-Plains Local School District, and that's in London, Ohio. We're going to take another quick break. Please stay with us. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We also want to say thanks to Hometown Ticketing, the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. You can find out more about what Hometown Ticketing can do for you and your school by going to hometownticketing.com and talk to their experts. Hometown Ticketing, simple and easy online ticketing.
Jake, in regards to Hometown, another great partner of yours, we use Hometown in Madison-Plains, and this upcoming year, we're going to actually use their color coding option. So one of our concerns was when people buy tickets, they could technically buy a student ticket as an adult or a student pass as an adult. And it was kind of difficult to differentiate between the two because they don't have to put in their birth date or anything like that. So when I work with my Hometown rep this year, we're going to have a banner, and it's going to be different color coded when they show us their digital ticket, and it'll say adult pass or family pass or student pass, and they're going to be color coded. So it's going to give my gate workers the opportunity to make sure that people are using the right passes. We found that our revenue is down a little bit this past year, in a year that we expected it to be surging. And I brought that problem to Hometown, and they showed me this solution that they put in place for another school. And, that's the type of partnerships that we need in our profession. Very cool.
Again, we love all of our sponsors, and, we appreciate you taking the time to, give a shout out for a product that you use and you enjoy. I forgot to give you an opportunity on our previous sponsor, Huddle. I used Huddle for years as a football coach, and our school, we were a Huddle school. All of our teams and coaches used the Huddle platform, but you mentioned you use Huddle as well.
Yeah, we do. So we've always used kind of the application, what the coaches use to break it down. But this coming year, we're transitioning to their cameras as well. So one of the biggest pain points that I had last year is I had a legacy system that wasn't Huddle in place. So after a game, my process to get that loaded so that coaches could do something with it was I had to wait an hour from when the game stopped, when we stopped recording, just for it to get up into the cloud. Then I had to put in a request to make that downloadable, which took anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour. Then, because it's a video file, huge download, and then I had to upload it to Huddle. So over the basketball season, because of the arrangement that my coaches had with other teams that they were exchanging videos with, we needed to have that video available that evening. So there were some nights that I was there until 1 o'clock in the morning, literally sitting around and waiting stuff to download and upload. And now nearly every school in our conference is using Huddle. So all videos are available right away. As it's being recorded, it's being uploaded directly to their system. So the hours that it's going to give me back switching to this is really something that I'm thankful for. And I was glad that we can do it. And then it was just announced their new partnership with Blue Frame. So now I've got a production company built right into my Huddle system that I'm going to be able to apply to my streaming experience. And it's just something I'm really excited about.
Again, for our listeners, we love all of our sponsors, but it's always great to hear when a guest is utilizing one of them to help them do their job better. So we're going to count this segment as our best practices segment. And I know, Huddle and Hometown are certainly going to appreciate those shout outs. Again, for our listeners, this is Matt Welsh. He's the athletic director at Madison-Plains Local High School, public school in London, Ohio. We're going to take another break, but we'll be back. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We also want to say thanks to Sideline Interactive for their support. Sideline Interactive's indoor scoring tables and video boards can generate $10,000 or more every season while creating the ultimate game day experience in your gym. Go to sidelineinteractive.com and see exactly what their tables and boards can do for you. You can also call them at 832-786-0302 to schedule a live web demo, or email them at sales@sidelineinteractive.com. That's sales@sidelineinteractive.com, and see exactly what their fantastic products can do for you and your school. We're back talking with Matt Welsh from the, I'm having a senior moment here, from Madison-Plains Local School District. Matt, one of our longtime questions, we ask our athletic directors, how can you help, how can an athletic director help his community by becoming more socially aware? I know that's a big umbrella, but do you have any advice for us? How can ADs be more socially aware?
Yeah, I think part of that is us being aware ourselves, and really understanding what's going on in the environment around us. And that's not only for us or what's on the news, but maybe what's going on with student athletes or in coaches, or whether it's with different races or something like that. So just having a level of awareness. And then I like to just have conversations with my coaches to make sure that they're aware. And also that they're not bringing any bias to that conversation. Because, let's face it, generationally, we look at these different situations differently. And a student athlete, even a basketball player may have a different view than a basketball coach. And where I currently am, there isn't a lot of diversity. However, those are still teachable moments, because ultimately we're preparing these kids to push them out into the real world and make sure that they're positive contributors to society, and just being socially aware of what's going on around us and how to be open-minded and be inclusive is so important. It's just one of the things that we teach as athletic administrators.
Yeah, a lot of good points there. The takeaway I got is always comes back to communication. You just can't assume a kid or a coach or a parent is going to understand what you're talking about. Just get to know them, communicate with them, very cool stuff. Matt, this has been cool connecting with you finally face to face, even though it is virtual. But we're not done yet. We always wrap up with the athletic director's toolbox. So we're going to take a quick break and hear from Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack, who sponsored the toolbox. And when we come back, we're going to find out what a year ago, new athletic director is going to put into his athletic director toolbox. Please stay with us. As I said, we want to thank Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack for sponsoring the AD Toolbox segment. Athletic surveys are a quick, easy, and affordable way for you to collect comprehensive data that allows you to evaluate and improve your entire athletic program. Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack also connects you with the 95% of the parents and the student athletes who really love your program, and it gives them a voice to help demonstrate the importance that a positive athletic experience has for them. Go to athleticsurveys.com and check out their testimonials, and then give them a call at 1-800-738-6466, or you can email them at info@athleticsurveys.com to get started. If you've never used a survey to take the pulse of your parents or your student athletes, you're really missing out. Talk to the folks at Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack and let them help you take your athletic program from good to great. Well, as I said, Matt, and again, our guest today is Matt Welsh, the athletic director at Madison-Plains Local School District in London, Ohio. Matt, you are just wrapping up year number one as an athletic director. So you are the new athletic director personified for our show. I don't know if these are three tools that you wish you would have had or three tools that you did have, but right now we want to know what three tools are going to go into Matt Welsh's athletic director toolbox.
Yeah. So, based off of things that I've learned from your podcast and your first book, I actually was out gathering those tools. But when I think of three things that are important, and, some of these may be duplicative to what you've already heard, but I tie these things to maybe different quotes or different goals that we have. So one of the things that I've got on my dry erase board, I've got in my signature is visibility improves credibility. So I tell athletic directors to be present, to be in the moment and be here now. You may be talking to a sophomore student athlete, but thinking about something much bigger than that. For that sophomore student athlete, that may be the most important conversation that they have all day. But then the credibility piece, getting out and going to things that people don't go to is just so important. And there's so many relationships that can be built through just simply being present. The next thing, the quote that I tie to it is, if you permit it, you promote it. So be thoughtful, be intentional, be consistent, and be aware of the precedents that you're setting with every decision that you make. If you walk by trash on the floor and don't pick it up, you're saying that that's okay. If you walk by a student athlete who's maybe talking inappropriately to a classmate in the hallway, if you let that go on, you're saying that it's okay. And it's just something to be aware of. It's not something that we should be teaching. And the last one is a rule that I have in place. And I actually had a great conversation with this rule just this morning, but I call it the 2x4 rule. So I ask my coaches to make sure that I never get hit by a 2x4. And what I mean by that is caught off guard by something that they were aware of, but didn't make me aware of. And then I use that same rule for those that I report to or my coaches. If I become aware of a situation, no matter how big or small it is, I'm going to make you aware of it just in case it escalates to you. So you know what I've said, what the details are that I'm aware of. And it also gives you the opportunity to provide some feedback to me as I continue to deal with that issue. So those are three things that are really important to me. On a completely different side, I actually am building a real life toolbox right now. So, I think there's been people on your podcast or other podcasts, but just that thing that we carry around in our trunk, in our, our golf cart, just, the twist ties and the duct tape and, screwdrivers and stuff like that. So, there are the two totally different things, but at the end of the day, they're tools that we use every day.
No, you're absolutely right. I remember my final job, my golf cart, because we had a very big campus. I had those tools, and you said twist ties. We're always needing that at some place. Things like that in that little toolbox in that golf cart. And if we didn't have it in the golf cart, it was back in my office somewhere. Absolutely right. You got to have a toolbox. So,
that's right.
Matt, this has been really cool. If one of our listeners wants to reach out, pick your brain a little bit, find out more about some of the things you do at your school, what's the best way they can get in touch with you?
Yeah, so I typically use the handle Matthew Welsh AD. So it's Matthew with two T's, WELSHAD. So that's on Twitter, that's on Instagram, that's my Facebook profile, and then MatthewWelshAD@gmail.com. Those all tie directly back to me, and I have access to those. So those are great ways to reach out to me. MatthewWelshAD.com is a website that I created as part of my capstone project at Ohio University. So it's a little bit outdated, but there you can get my contact information as well.
Well, that'll be when you join the consulting world. Like Scott Garvis, myself, and other pros like you. Okay.
There you go.
Okay. Matt, thanks so much for spending time with us today. All the best moving forward, and hopefully you get a little bit of downtime this summer.
Very good. Thank you, Jake. I really appreciate this, and please keep doing what you're doing. It's so helpful.
Thank you. Really appreciate it. And our sponsors appreciate you today. For our listeners, remember the Zoom recordings of all of our interviews get uploaded to the Educational AD Podcast YouTube channel. We appreciate you listening today. Come back just about every day for new content on the Educational AD Podcast. Have a great day. And before we go, we want to say thanks to Vital Signs. They're on a mission to bring your school's legacy to life. They've got a variety of interactive touchscreen consoles and an entire library of templates to help recognize the athletic achievements of your students, both past and present. Let them help you showcase your school's diverse history and your proudest moments, and go to vitalsignswalloffame.com or call them at 614-981-3589 or send them an email at sales@vitalsignswalloffame.com. Remember, they're trying to bring your school's legacy to life. Once again, we hope you've enjoyed today's episode. If you have suggestions on how we can improve the podcast, or if you'd like to be a guest, shoot me an email at jakestouchdown@gmail.com, or I'm on Twitter at jakestouchdown. As always, we appreciate you listening. We appreciate you supporting our sponsors. We'll see you next time on the Educational AD Podcast.